Just 11 specific animals on a single acre of land can generate a closed-loop food system that eliminates your need for commercial feed, synthetic fertilizer, and most grocery store runs within 3 years. None of these animals were chosen at random. Each one fills an ecological niche that directly supports at least 2 others, meaning the waste stream of one creature becomes the primary resource for the next. Stay through the full breakdown because the exact phased implementation roadmap, the order you add each animal and why that sequence matters, comes at the end. To ground this in something tangible, 1 acre is roughly the size of a football field without the end zones. Most suburban lots sit on a 1/4 acre. 4 of those lots, stacked intelligently with living systems, can outproduce a 50-acre conventional monoculture operation in total nutritional diversity per square foot. So what are these 11 contributors, and how do they lock together into a single biological engine? Let's find out. The first animal in this list is the black soldier flies. This might be the single most important organism in the entire system, and most people have never considered farming it. The black soldier fly larva, Hermetia illucens, functions as a biological waste processor that converts kitchen scraps, animal manure, and spoiled vegetation into larvae containing 42% crude protein and 35% fat by dry weight. A single bin measuring 4 feet by 2 feet can process 5 pounds of organic waste per day and yield roughly 1 pound of harvestable larvae every 48 hours. That conversion ratio, waste to feed in under 2 days, outperforms any commercial feed mill on the planet when measured by input cost versus nutritional output. The ecological role here is foundational. Every other animal on this acre generates waste. The black soldier fly colony absorbs that waste before it becomes a sanitation problem, breaks it down through larval digestion, and converts it into the highest quality live protein feed available. The adult flies do not bite, do not carry disease, and actually repel houseflies through chemical signaling. Think of this organism as the system's liver, quietly processing everything toxic into something usable while nobody pays attention. The common misconception is that raising insects requires specialized equipment or controlled environments. In reality, black soldier fly colonies self-regulate their temperature through metabolic heat generation and thrive in simple wooden bins with drainage holes and a self-harvesting ramp that larvae crawl up voluntarily when they reach pupation stage. The system now has a way to turn waste into high-quality protein, but that protein needs to be converted into something you can actually use every single day. That's where chickens come in. A flock of 12 ISA brown hens produces roughly 3,300 eggs per year, averaging 275 eggs per bird annually during peak production. Fed primarily on black soldier fly larvae supplemented with pasture forage, these birds require 0 commercial layer feed once the insect colony reaches maturity. Their nitrogen-rich manure, averaging 1.1% nitrogen, 0.8% phosphorus, and 0.5% potassium fresh, feeds directly back into the compost system or the soldier fly bins. Their ecological role extends beyond egg production. Chickens scratch until the top 2 inches of soil, breaking up compacted ground and incorporating organic matter. Rotated behind larger grazers on a 3-day delay, they spread manure pats, consume fly larvae and parasitic worm eggs from the droppings, and reduce pest populations by 60 to 70% compared to ungrazed pasture. They function as sanitation crews with a side hustle in breakfast production. But chickens avoid wet ground completely, and that leaves an entire part of your land unmanaged. That gap is filled by Muscovy ducks. Where chickens work dry ground, Muscovy ducks dominate wet zones. A group of 8 Muscovies consumes up to 500 slugs and snails per bird per month during peak season, making them the most efficient gastropod predators available to small-scale agriculture. Unlike Pekin or Cocky Campbell breeds, Muscovies fly to roost, require no pond, only shallow water access, and produce meat with 50% less fat than standard duck breeds. Their manure washes into swale systems and feeds aquatic plants in constructed wetlands. They eat mosquito larvae from standing water sources, reducing vector insect populations without chemical intervention. Muscovies are quiet. The females produce only a soft, trilling sound rather than the loud quacking that draws neighbor complaints, making them uniquely suited to dense, 1-acre operations near residential boundaries. Picture them as amphibious patrol units covering the terrain your chickens avoid. Now you've covered both dry and wet zones, but you're still only thinking in 2 dimensions. The real jump in efficiency happens when you start stacking production vertically. That's where Coturnix quail changed the game. Coturnix quail reach butcher weight in 6 weeks and begin laying eggs at 7 weeks of age. A covey of 30 birds fits inside a 4 by 8 foot elevated hutch and produces roughly 25 eggs daily. Small eggs containing proportionally more yolk and higher concentrations of B12 than chicken eggs. They consume 14 grams of feed per bird per day, making them the most feed-efficient poultry per gram of protein output on Earth. Ecologically, quail droppings fall through wire mesh floors directly into worm bins or soldier fly trays positioned beneath their hutches. This vertical stacking, quail above, decomposers below, doubles the productivity of a single footprint without adding square footage. Their small size and rapid generation time mean you can scale protein production up or down within weeks rather than months. They are the system's quick response unit for protein demand spikes. Fast production is useful, but it's not stable on its own. You need something that produces consistently, quietly, and without stressing the system. That role is handled by New Zealand white rabbits. A trio of does and one buck can produce 600 pounds of dressed meat per year in a space smaller than a parking spot. Rabbit meat contains 20.8% protein and only 3.5% fat, leaner than chicken, turkey, or any commercially available red meat. Their pellets are classified as cold manure, meaning they can be applied directly to garden beds and fruit tree root zones without composting or risk of nitrogen burn. Rabbits consume garden trimmings, weeds, and surplus greens that would otherwise enter the compost stream. Their fur, particularly from Angora crosses, provides fiber for spinning or felting. The urine, collected separately, dilutes into a potent liquid fertilizer with a nitrogen-phosphorus-potassium ratio of approximately 10 is to 0 is to 5. Every output from a rabbit colony has a direct destination within the system. Nothing accumulates. Nothing requires hauling off-site. The rabbit hutch functions as a slow-drip fertilizer factory with a meat byproduct. Up to this point, everything operates close to the ground, but your land doesn't stop there. There's an entire vertical layer being ignored. Nigerian dwarf goats are what unlock it. Nigerian dwarf goats stand under 2 feet at the shoulder and produce between 1 and 2 quarts of milk daily, with butterfat content averaging 6.5%, nearly double that of full-size dairy breeds like Sannon or Alpine. 3 does on rotational browse can clear a 1/4 acre of invasive brush, poison ivy, and woody undergrowth per month, while simultaneously providing enough milk for cheese, soap, kefir, and drinking. Their manure, also classified as cold, pelletizes naturally and integrates directly into garden pathways as mulch or into raised beds as slow-release fertility. Goats preferentially browse rather than graze, meaning they target shrubs, vines, and tree leaves up to 5 feet high, performing the exact vegetation management that would otherwise require a chainsaw or herbicide application. On a 1-acre system, they manage the vertical growth plane that no other animal touches. The whey byproduct from cheese-making pours directly into pig or chicken feed as a probiotic calcium supplement. Goats clear aggressively, but they don't maintain balance. Once the land is opened up, something has to keep it stable long-term. That's where baby doll Southdown sheep step in. Standing only 18 to 24 inches tall at the shoulder, Southdown baby doll sheep graze orchard floors without reaching fruit-bearing branches. Commercial orchards spend $200 to $400 per acre annually on mowing. A pair of baby dolls eliminates that cost entirely while fertilizing the drip zone of every tree they pass beneath. Their wool, dense, soft, and prized by hand spinners, sells for $15 to $13 per raw pound at fiber festivals. They graze in a tight, even pattern that mimics mechanical mowing without soil compaction from heavy equipment. Orchard grass maintained at 2 to 3 inches through sheep grazing promotes beneficial fungal networks in the root zone, improving nutrient transfer to fruit trees by measurable margins. These animals exist at the intersection of lawn maintenance, fiber production, and mycorrhizal stewardship. 3 jobs performed by a single animal requiring nothing beyond grass, water, and occasional shearing. By now, the system is clean and controlled, but it still doesn't have a way to absorb excess. And in a closed loop, excess quickly becomes a problem. Kunekune pigs solve that. Standard pig breeds root. They destroy pasture, upend fencing, and require concrete or deep-bedded housing. Kunekune pigs graze. They're short, Upturned snouts and docile temperament make them the only pig breed suited to pasture-based systems without nose rings or ground destruction. Originating from New Zealand, kunakunas fatten on grass alone. No grain supplementation required, reaching 150 to 200 pounds in 12 to 14 months on pasture rotation. Their ecological role centers on pasture renovation. Kunakunas consume fallen fruit, windfall apples, excess dairy whey, and garden surplus that would attract rodents if left on the ground. They compact light soils through hoof traffic without the destructive overturning of conventional swine. Their manure, higher in organic matter than any other livestock species on the property, becomes the primary carbon-rich input for deep compost piles that feed the garden beds. One breeding pair provides 60 to 100 pounds of pork per year, plus an ongoing stream of compostable fertility, fueled entirely by resources already present on the acre. Everything so far manages inputs and outputs, but none of it matters if your plants don't fully produce. You need a multiplier, not just maintenance. That multiplier is honeybees. 2 hives positioned centrally on the acre increase fruit and vegetable yields by 30 to 70% through pollination services alone, before accounting for honey, beeswax, or propolis harvest. A single healthy hive pollinates roughly 300 million flowers per season. The financial value of that pollination, calculated against hand pollination labor costs, exceeds $1,500 annually per hive. Carniolan bees overwinter on smaller stores than Italian varieties, making them more economical in northern climates. Russian hybrids demonstrate natural resistance to Varroa destructor mites, reducing chemical treatment requirements. The bees forage within a 2-mile radius, but concentrate activity within 500 feet of the hive, meaning your 1-acre polyculture sits entirely within their primary work zone. Surplus honey, averaging 30 to 60 pounds per hive per year in established systems, provides a calorie-dense sweetener and a shelf-stable trade good. The beeswax seals wood surfaces, makes candles, and waterproofs leather goods produced from other animals on the property. More production also means more vulnerability. Without protection, everything you've built becomes easy to lose. That's why geese are introduced next. A gaggle of 4 geese consumes 6 pounds of grass daily, maintaining lawn areas and pathways at no feed cost beyond what grows underfoot. Their size: 12 to 14 pounds for American buff, slightly larger for pilgrim. And aggressive territorial displays deter hawks, foxes, raccoons, and stray dogs from entering the poultry zones. They function as a zero-cost security system that also mows, fertilizes, and produces 30 to 50 eggs per year for baking. Geese are the lowest maintenance livestock on this list. They require no supplemental feed from April through October in temperate climates, no housing beyond a simple 3-sided shelter, and no veterinary intervention in most years. Their loud alarm calls alert the entire property, and you, to predator presence day or night. One goose patrolling a chicken run reduces predation losses by up to 90% compared to unguarded flocks. The trade-off for that protection is nothing more than access to grass they were going to eat anyway. Pure gain, zero input. At this stage, the land is fully optimized, but one major resource is still underused: water. And that's where the system reaches peak efficiency, with tilapia or channel catfish. A 300-gallon insulated tank stocked with 50 tilapia fingerlings produces 25 to 30 pounds of harvestable fish protein in 6 months. The ammonia-rich water, cycled through a gravel bed growing system, delivers dissolved nitrogen and phosphorus directly to plant roots at concentrations equivalent to commercial hydroponic nutrient solutions, without purchasing a single bottle of synthetic fertilizer. Fish convert feed to flesh at a 1.5:1 ratio. Meaning every 1.5 pounds of black soldier fly larvae produces 1 pound of live fish. Compare that to beef cattle at 8:1, or even chickens at 2:1, and aquaculture emerges as the most feed-efficient animal protein available. The system water, changed out partially every 2 weeks, irrigates garden beds with pre-fertilized liquid. Duckweed, grown in a secondary shallow trough, doubles its biomass every 48 hours and provides supplemental fish feed containing 35% protein. The fish tank becomes both a protein source and a liquid fertilizer generator running continuously without soil, without tilling, and without seasonal dormancy. The power isn't in the animals, it's in how they connect. Kitchen scraps feed black soldier flies. The larvae feed chickens, quail, and fish. Their waste cycles back into the system, fertilizing greens, feeding rabbits, and eventually returning to the soil. Nothing leaves. Everything feeds something else. Another loop. Goat, whey feeds pigs and chickens. Pig manure builds compost. Compost grows pasture. Pasture feeds geese, sheep, and pigs again. And overhead, bees multiply everything, pollinating the orchard while animals below recycle every fallen input back into fertility. Waste becomes fuel at every step. The biggest question is where to start, because adding all 11 animals at once would overwhelm anyone. So here's how to build it, step by step. For the first 3 months, focus on just 2 things: your black soldier fly colony and a 12-hen chicken setup. These 2 elements create the foundational nutrient cycling loop: waste to larvae, to eggs, to manure, and back to larvae. You learn the basics of husbandry on the most forgiving animals while building the biological engine everything else depends on. From months 4 to 8, add quail above worm bins and bring in a few Muscovy ducks to handle the wet areas. Plant the orchard trees that will eventually host the sheep. Begin the rabbit colony with 1 doe-buck pair. Protein diversity expands while the insect colony scales to meet new demand. In the next phase, months 9 to 14, you bring in Nigerian dwarf goats for browse management and dairy. Install the fish tank and aquaponics bed. The fly colony now processes waste from 5 animal species and produces enough larvae to feed 3 of them. External feed purchases drop below 30% of total animal nutrition. From month 15 to 24, introduce baby doll sheep to the now established orchard. Add 2 beehives. Bring in the goose patrol. These animals require the least daily management and benefit most from existing infrastructure: established pasture, mature trees, and functioning predator awareness from an experienced operator. In the last phase, from month 24 to 36, add the Kunekune breeding pair last. Pigs demand the most space management and produce the most waste volume. By this phase, your compost systems, pasture rotations, and whey production from goat dairy are all running at capacity, ready to absorb everything the pigs generate and convert it into the system's richest fertility source.